your immediate question as an American ought to be, how long until Gaza happens here? And the answer is only by the grace of God did it not already happen. Millions of people, obviously, as you pointed out, we're not saying all of these people are terrorists, but when you give up control of your border, and people need to understand that there is no border control and there are no meaningful checks, so the whole world can walk in, and that includes the Middle East and Sub-Saharan Africa, which are the hotbeds of Islamic terrorism, right? That's where ISIS and Al-Qaeda and everybody else is active. Okay, you have created the opportunity to send in not just a handful of guys, but as many guys as you want. There is no check. The number of people they actually run background checks on and reject, if you look at the numbers, and this, of course, is only counting the people that they apprehend, so the gotaways are not in this. But even so, it's a tiny fraction of 1%. It's statistically irrelevant. They don't turn around anybody. So as Ben says, everybody's coming, everybody can get in, and you are pumping in people, we're actually paying for this, from known terrorist hotbeds. Now, it is inconceivable to me, given our adversaries who have not gone away, that they are not taking advantage of that. And there's nobody doing anything about it. So if you turn around tomorrow and you have suicide attacks and what they call Fedayeen attacks in a dozen major American cities, nobody in good conscience is going to be able to say, well, I didn't see that coming, because we are doing literally nothing to stop it. In fact, as Ben says, and people like Michael Yan say all the time, we are actually facilitating this. We are paying to pump these people into our country.
But are you reading anything between the lines in Secretary Blinken's response there?
Well, he acknowledged that we were all caught off guard. I think by definition, this is an intelligence failure, but it's actually more than that. It's also a border security failure. And I think the question, Alex, at this hour is, where will Israel go next? I mean, certainly they will battle Palestinian terrorists that have infiltrated the country. They'll stage hostage rescue operations. And then we can expect a comprehensive, thorough degradation and destruction of Hamas's war-making capabilities inside Gaza. I think the question is, will the violence spread to the West Bank? And more fundamentally, will Israel launch military attacks? And by the way, I think they would be absolutely justified in doing so against other Iranian proxies around the region, because after all, Hamas's main patron is Iran, which does not want to see greater integration, greater peace between Israel and the Arab states.
So on that front, Hezbollah, given the military might of Hezbollah, how delicately does Israel have to approach something like that if they choose to engage them forcefully?
Zero delicateness, if you will. I think they're going to deal with Hezbollah with a very tough iron fist. Hezbollah is a terrorist military that has about 200,000 medium and long-range ballistic missiles aimed directly at Israel. Israel's a pretty small country, 9 million people, about the size of Rhode Island, one main populated center around Tel Aviv. Israeli officials refer to the country as a country of just 100 targets. If a terrorist military with ballistic missiles can fire 100 targets strategically at the center point of Israel, it's going to be a very difficult day for Israelis. And they know that the Israeli civil defense authorities have the civilian population well trained to scurry into bomb shelters. The United States has helped field the Iron Dome anti-rocket artillery and mortar batteries to support Israel's defense. So Israel may have to go on the offensive across the northern border, not only into Lebanon, but also into Syria, to take out Hezbollah and other Iranian proxy positions. And I wouldn't be surprised, Alex, if Israel also undertook operations as far as the Persian Gulf to take out Iranian naval assets and even their air assets, because if Iran is behind this attack, then Israel, as I said, would be completely justified in launching such operations. We in the United States would do precisely that.
Got to tell you, Jeremy, what you are laying out as possible, it is an all-out Middle East war.
What Jeremy Bash just laid out would be a war that would last how many decades, sir?
God knows, Steve. I mean, what are we talking? We're just talking. What I heard him talk about was setting the entire Middle East on fire. So, 20 years, 30 years, forever. I mean, look, I'm no friend of Hamas, Hezbollah, the Iranians. I spent a lot of time on the street, face to face, fighting these guys, and got a number of friends who lost their lives in that fight. But I got to tell you, I am heartily sick of people announcing that we are going to start wars with no clear objectives, no clear ending. And as you noted very effectively when you were talking earlier, it doesn't seem that any of these people are ever the ones volunteering to go in harm's way. They just want somebody else's kid to get blown up and shot.
Sam, I want to talk about in the region. You've been there and spent a lot of your career there. You have the Mossad, you have IDF Military Intelligence, you have CIA, you have DIA, you have NSA that can look at anything. You got Saudi, UAE, and Egyptian intelligence, all which were. Is it zero probability that somehow people didn't know that the logistics, the training, the planning on a multi-point, large geographic area, air, sea, and land attack was going to occur, sir?
It's straight up incomprehensible to me, Steve. Look, the Gaza Strip is 5 miles wide, 25 miles long, and it's obviously shares a border with Israel. Shin Bet, which is the Israeli Internal Service, has the charter for the occupied territories for what used to be called the occupied territories, West Bank and Gaza. Shin Bet has that place wired to, you can't sneeze in the Gaza Strip without them knowing it. They blow up a car filled with terrorists. They know the names of everybody in that car. They know the names of their family members. I mean, so you're talking about a massive invasion. This was not a handful of small terrorist attacks. Massive invasion mounted under the Israelis' noses. The prep was done a few miles away. Thousands and thousands of rockets prepared. All the supplies brought in to support this. Yada yada, on and on and on. And you're going to tell me that not only did we not hear anything, NSA didn't intercept anything, the Egyptians didn't know anything, and somehow the Israelis didn't know anything. Now, if that's true, it's mind-boggling, and a whole bunch of people need to lose their jobs. But obviously, my first thought is that cannot possibly be true. That can't be true, that this really was a surprise. There had to be information telling them that things are coming.
Given your expertise in this line of country, how dangerous is the situation, in your professional opinion, is the situation in the United States of what we've allowed in here, sir?
You know, every red light ought to be flashing everywhere in the IC. We do not have a border anymore. We don't conduct any meaningful screening. The screening is pointless. What database are you checking the guys from sub-Saharan Africa against to see if they're members of Al-Qaeda? That's nonsensical. So you're not screening them, you're not stopping them, and you've dismantled every defense we erected after 9/11. So you are waiting for attacks. And let's keep in mind, I wrote something the other day talking about we're waiting to see Gaza here, but groups like Al-Qaeda, 9/11 was never intended to be the final attack, nor was it ever intended to be the worst attack. So they never abandoned, for instance, working on weapons of mass destruction, chemical, biological, and nuclear. At the time we went into Afghanistan, Al-Qaeda was talking to Pakistani nuclear scientists about building them a bomb. So you're not just talking about Gaza or 9/11, you're really talking about leaving us wide open for something infinitely worse. It's death on a scale we have never experienced. And we are literally, as a country, I mean, this is even for me hard to get my head around sometimes, but we're not actually doing anything to protect ourselves. We're just waiting for it to happen.